2014. Great to have Justin Vincent joining us now. Justin, listen, thanks so much for the time. It's a pleasure. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me.
Listen, it's my pleasure. And listen, with regard to, I think I mentioned Shaquille O'Neal. Well, obviously, an LSU guy and a guy that anybody that knows Shaq knows that his intentions are good. And anytime you get Shaq involved in something, you're probably going to get a positive response. So that doesn't surprise me at all. And I think that having Shaquille O'Neal prior to this whole thing blowing up was a good thing to begin with. But even after it happened, it was even a better thing because I think more than anything else, and I know I don't speak for you at all, but I know that who you are and what you represent. I feel that there's a huge, huge desire for people in most cases to have understanding, to have reconciliation, and to have love. My God tells me to love everyone. My God tells me to serve everyone. My God tells me it doesn't make any difference where you come from, what you look like, or what your opinions are. That's the goal, and that's the mark that we strive for every day. I know I do. And to hear that kind of message is, I think it's refreshing, regardless of what your position is or how you feel about people. So he was probably the right guy at the right time. Your thoughts?
Oh, no doubt. I mean, you get somebody who is a polarizing figure such as Shaq, has been through, like you mentioned, the ups and downs. Obviously, his childhood and growing up, things that he went through, and the way to kind of persevere and come out on the other side. You can't do that without faith, and obviously he can speak from past experiences. So I think he was the right person for that job they had to come speak to the team.
Well, you serve quite a role at your alma mater. I mean, you've raised money through the TAF. You're working with football assistant director of player personnel. You know what it's like to be a player. You went through this experience extensively. You obviously, by and large, I would imagine, had a very good experience at LSU given the circumstances and the fact that you work there now. How much of a difference do you see, before we talk about football, from when you played at LSU in the early to mid-2000s with Coach Saban to what we see now in terms of how the student athlete is perceived, appreciated? We see what's happening now with regard to the potential of funding student athletes and merchandising and everything else. I think it kind of reflects society. We've made progress. We're not there yet, but we've made progress. Would that be accurate to say compared to when you played as compared to now?
Oh, 100%. Obviously with time, change comes, and, sometimes it can be bad, sometimes it can be good. But I think with LSU, it went up and trended in the right direction. Everything has gone according to plan. I mean, obviously there's a bunch of things now going in place as far as, players want to get paid for their likeness and things of that nature. But I think LSU is where we want to be. I think, athletically, education, we're getting the right kids. We're not, Coach O has kind of a great plan in place. A lot of coaches, back in the day, you say when I played, we're going after the most talented kids in the country. And they would get you to school regardless if you had issues or not. Most coaches think, with egos, they can corral you in. I can make him listen. I can make him a better human being. And sometimes it backfires on him. Majority of the time it does. But I think with Coach O, the plan he has in place is that I'm going after the kid, high character, and can play good football. I can make him a great player. If he has all the other things going on, I can coach him up good enough that he can produce for us and possibly put some money in his pocket later on down the future and have an opportunity to play in the NFL.
Well, I think this football team this past year reflected that to the nth degree. Were there some highly regarded recruits on that team? Of course there were. But then there were also guys like Joe Burrow and Clyde Edwards-Helaire who were afterthoughts. And, Clyde, I did several of his high school games. He's a really good high school player, and yet he wasn't regarded as that guy at all. Joe Burrow, we all know his story and what he went through. And to see the way those guys played at that level was heartwarming, but it also reflected two things. The importance of, but player development is important. It's not to cast aspersions at Coach Miles, at anybody that's been there, but this particular staff has done a good job at player development as any staff that's ever been at LSU.
Definitely. I think, like I said before, you get somebody like Clyde, obviously had every intangible you want in a running back. But his knock was his size. Obviously, he is not the tallest person in the world, but he plays, like Coach O says, like he's 7 foot. I mean, he just has the heart of one of the biggest players I've ever seen in my life. I mean, he does everything you ask him to do. And a lot of times, people get confused in statistics when it comes to, long wingspans, legs, hips, all this stuff. Obviously, you do need those things to play football at a high level and at this level, but you can't measure someone's heart. I mean, Clyde played outside of his body per se, and did some things, we thought obviously is possible because you watch him, and once he got the ball in practice for the first time, you like, this kid's going to be special. But nobody kind of envisioned the things that he put on tape this year and was able to help this team and propel himself to be, a first-round draft pick. I mean, it just shows you, the amount of toughness he had and sheer determination for somebody who's always kind of got that knock that he's not big enough to do those things.
Just a terrific young man, too. And so is Burrow. And listen, I just enjoyed those guys so much. I enjoyed Justin Jefferson. Nobody wanted him either. He was a last-second signee by LSU. I saw him play high school football and did games. And another kid that, again, just you couldn't feel better for him. He's just done a great job, and now he's in a terrific position, being a first-round pick. Couldn't be happier for him. Patrick Queen, same way. Did anybody really know who he was? Was he really on anybody's radar? All of a sudden, he's a first-round pick. And, then there's all the others. I mean, 14 guys drafted. It's unbelievable. Grant Delbert was a natural leader on that defense, played hurt most of the year, and is probably better than where he was picked. I just think they maxed out. They got the maximum potential out of their team because they prepared well, they coached them well, and there was a great line of communication. I think all those things came together to make that team what it ultimately was.
Oh, no doubt. Coach O deserves, 100% of the credit because, like many of you guys know his story, Coach O was at Ole Miss. He had his hand in every basket. He wanted to know what special teams is doing, wanted to know what defense is doing, offense, obviously. But when you hire good coaches, you trust them. Obviously, you went through the ups and downs at your other location. You understand that you can't do everything. So you hire people that you can trust to implement the plan that you have in place, and he let them go to work. I've never seen, more of a fluid coaching staff. You walk in the building, everybody saying hello. Like, it just felt different. I mean, obviously you don't predict that somebody's going to win a national championship and go undefeated, but at the same time, you knew they had potential to do some good things later on down the road if they start winning late games in late November. So they just put it all on tape, and we were just very fortunate enough to be around and see it.
Just like we're seeing in society today with true uniters, unifiers, and people that genuinely care about each other, Ed Orgeron really strikes me as being a guy that genuinely cares about his players. I think it's reflected by the fact that not only do they play hard for him, but he listens to them. Again, the Mondays where he has the session where you tell the truth, everything about it. I think he's learned so much from his experiences, but he's put it into play. But more than that, it's pretty obvious that his players really care about him because he cares about them.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, he is, Coach O, whenever he was at USC, he came down to Lake Charles, came to Barb High School. He recruited me, came in my home. He's the same person he was in 2001 that he is today. Character-wise, always upbeat, talks, with his chest, very firm in what he believes in, has all the confidence in the world. And that's all you can ask for from a coach. And he is doing a phenomenal job.
You lose 14 players to the draft, others that sign, and, of course, you're almost absent completely in the national conversation regarding, who's the team to beat in 2020. We hear the same names. We hear Alabama. We hear Clemson. We hear Ohio State. Even hear Georgia mentioned in that mix. Somehow we don't hear LSU, and yet this is a good LSU team that's coming back in 2020.
Yeah, it's a great team. I mean, obviously there's a bunch of changing of the guards in this country. Obviously we're losing Joe Burrow, who is, you can't replace. We know how Miles was in high school. We know all his accolades. You know what he's capable of doing. I mean, if he can put that thing together and put it on tape and get the ball out there, we can be just as good. We won't be as good because that is unseen territory right there, but they have an opportunity to be as good as they want to be. If they can get that thing together, but the really crappy part about the whole situation is that obviously with the pandemic happening and those guys not being able to get out there right away, spring ball was cut short, they're going to have to put it in overtime come this summer to kind of get that chemistry to get the ball rolling so everybody can be on the same page in the fall.
I look at the receiving cores that LSU and Alabama had last year, those were scary. I mean, you're talking about a whole bunch of first-round draft picks in those receiving cores playing in the same game last year with Alabama, with Judy and Ruggs and Devontae Smith, LSU with Jamar, along with Terrace Marshall, who's coming back, and, of course, Justin Jefferson. And that's just the frontline guys. Fact of the matter is you got Jamar Chase back and Terrace Marshall back, but there's two or three others that are really good-looking players. Racey McMath can certainly step up. I'm real high on Trey Palmer. They've signed two or three kids that can really play. They're going to have really good receivers again.
Oh, yeah, that receiving core is going to be just as dangerous as it was last year. I mean, obviously, nobody knew what Justin Jefferson could bring to the table. You saw some flashes year prior to, but he put in the hard work, and he went out there and put it on tape and, did some amazing things for not only himself but the ball club. But I think Trey Palmer has all that ability. Racey McMath has all that ability. He's probably one of the bigger receivers that I've seen personally up close. Other than when I was playing in Pittsburgh, I mean, you don't see that type of body walking in and out of the building all the time that can run like a deer and can catch the ball. And obviously, we know what Jamar can do. And Terrace Marshall, obviously he had to battle some injuries here and there, but all he does is catch touchdowns. So if they can put that thing together and get the ball to him, I think would be just as dangerous on offense.
Everybody points to Miles Brennan as being the key, and yet is there any other spot on the team that you think is really important to watch that needs to develop for LSU to be a genuine national contender once again?
We got to find somebody to replace our some linebackers we got missing. We're replacing some corners. I don't think we're going to have issues with that. Obviously, Derek Stingley's back. You got Cordell Flott, and then you got some of the freshmen coming into play. I think we got some guys who play some extensive action, but because of the success we had with this team last year, you didn't see them as much because we didn't need them. But I think they've played enough snaps and know what's expected and know what to do. It's just an opportunity to get them out there. But I don't think other than the quarterback position and there's going to be a nice battle at that running back position as well between Chris Curry, Ty Davis-Price, and John Emery. That's going to be a three-headed monster. And, to be honest with you, I think they're all going to play some significant balls. So I don't consider, at that running back these days, you being a starter it doesn't really mean anything because you're all going to get significant chances to touch the ball.
Yeah, I think they're all good, and they all bring different skills to the table. That's why I think they'll do a very fine job and will present some issues for defenses because of the different skills that they all possess. And the one thing that people never talk about is a kicking game, and LSU's got an elite kicking game. Place kicker had a good year. He had a little slump toward the end, but he had a good year. And then, of course, your kickoff man, Atkins, kicks everything in the end zone. Your punter, Von Rosenberg, is good. Stingley to return kicks. That's an undervalued element of the team that people don't talk about is the kicking game, and it's a big plus for LSU.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, obviously you put points on the board with field goals and extra points, but, getting that ball in the end zone, you're giving your team, where they're getting the ball at. There's no big return chances. I mean, those type of things can change the dynamics of the game with a, snap of a finger. So having, great special teams and some athletes down there to cover, there's one thing a special teams coach told me a long time ago. He said, I'm not playing with people who don't play on special teams. I need starters out there. That's when you get people down where they're supposed to be, running with determination and making tackles. Because sometimes I know people at special teams always tell them all the time, I said, dude, this is where you're going to make your money if you're not a first-round pick. If you can't run down on kickoff, if you can't line up on field goal block or PAT, or you can't do any of that stuff, or kickoff return, you're not going to make it. So you got to learn to love it and like it.
And, of course, when you look at the schedule this year, it sets up to every other year. It looks like it sets up well and not as well the next year and such. This would be the year where, it looks a little bit tougher than the previous year. We always talk about that with the odd and even and the fact that Florida is an every-year opponent and they're always going to be difficult. But, Georgia, again, a different deal when you're not playing them all the time. Alabama getting them at home but having to travel to Auburn. I guess there's give and take every year, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, obviously, our schedule, we always try to, Virg Osbury does a great job of putting that thing together. We always try to play some competitive non-conference games. We also try to service ourselves really well when it comes to having, like in Alabama, then you come back with, an in-state rival or somebody in the Division I AA just to kind of get people's, bodies back together to give them a chance later on in the season. But, it's always going to be the up and down stuff, but I think nothing can get harder than what it was last year, and maybe even the year prior too. I mean, this is the SEC, and this is the SEC West, where some of the most dominant teams in the country are located. So, it is what it is when it comes to that type of stuff.
Well, I mean, this is a program that I think is going to stay there. Final thought from you with regard to the incredible, the workout center, the locker room facility that everyone has shown, talked about, and having won a national championship in a 100,000-plus seat stadium. Is this the zenith of LSU football all time, the best place it's ever been, and the best chance to recruit and be an elite program for years to come?
Yeah, I think so. We spent a lot of money on that facility and upgrades and gave it a nice facelift. It paid for itself. You won a national championship. I mean, that's what you strive for. But having the facilities where they're at right now, having nutrition staff where it's at, our dietitian, our chefs, just the stuff we put together for the guys in the training room with the new pools and just rehabilitation. And Jack Marucci does a great job of putting new technology in there to get guys, rehab pretty fast and get them back on the field and ready for competition. So I think right now it's the Mecca. It's where you want to be in college sports, and we kind of are at Mount Rushmore right now. We know what it takes to get there, so hopefully we can kind of keep this trend going and kind of keep this thing going the right direction.